Hello beautiful people and welcome to another video. In this one I'll be working on this Art Deco credenza slash sideboard that someone painted multiple times with a nice thick coat of white paint. Looks like someone left a little surprise inside for Mando, so he's pretty excited about this project as well. As it's often the case, there was some liner and that lovely green fabric in one of the drawers that's a royal pain to get off. If you watch my videos or other furniture videos, you've seen people disassembling pieces of furniture many times, so I'll skip through most of it because it's quite boring. You're gonna help me, or are you just supervising? Gonna help me? Come on, grab the screwdriver. But I did leave this piece of footage in because Mando was being the cat he is, so I thought you would like this. I do like these pools because they are Art Deco style, but this is a very cheap metal, and on top of that it's just in a pretty crappy condition. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna keep these or not. Well, I did keep them, and the main reason why is because there is a door in front of the drawers that need to close, so there is not a lot of space, and these have a very slim profile. That's always a lot of fun, removing this green fabric. I actually had to replace the veneer on this drawer bottom because it just wasn't savable. As you can see, the edges are tapered, so there is no veneer around this, and someone just covered everything with a piece of cloth, but I'm not keeping the cloth, so I had to replace the veneer. For once, the drawers were actually not in a terrible condition, so after sanding they actually looked pretty okay, other than just one bit that you'll see in a minute. This is the drawer bottom that didn't have any fabric on, and it cleaned up nicely, so I was pretty happy with it and didn't need to do anything with it. The drawer fronts were made from solid oak, and because this is old wood, I applied a little bit of oxalic acid to bleach them and to remove any stains that were in the wood. I don't know if you can see this, but it looks like there are thousands of little holes. I think someone was just throwing knives or forks or something sharp in the drawer, and over time they've removed a layer of wood. And as I mentioned, this is just me replacing veneer on the drawer bottom that had the fabric on. Oxalic acid worked quite well, and you can hardly see the dark spots. After using oxalic acid, you need to wipe it off with water or deactivate it in some other way. If you look at the back of this sideboard, you can see that this is quite old, probably around 1930s, and someone painted it multiple times with white paint, so there is a very thick layer. That's why I decided to use a paint stripper. I'm not a big fan of using chemical strippers because they stink and you need to wear a mask, but it was a nice day, so I was able to do it outside and avoid wearing a mask. This looks like chalk paint, but I'm gonna test it for lead just to be on the safe side. As expected, there is no lead, and because I'm fancy AF, I'm using wine vinegar. Even with this chemical stripper, which normally works very well, this was just a lot. There was just so much paint and all those crevices, so this took forever. I guess this could have gone much quicker if Mando was helping instead of fighting with Hugo. I had to apply a bit more stripper because not all of the paint came off the first time, but eventually I got there. I like this stripper because it dries in a non-sticky way and you can deactivate it with water or mineral spirit, so it's very easy to work with. It's not looking great, but it's not terrible. I think it's definitely savable. So let's see what I can do with this. For some reason, I think this is one of the longest projects I've ever done. And maybe because I wasn't feeling it, but it was just so much work. And I think I worked on this for over 2 weeks. Just so you have an idea how long this took in real time, I had 6.5 hours of footage, which obviously is just what I chose to record, and I made a 28-minute video out of it. So yeah, that was a lot. So you might be able to see those really deep scratches in the veneer, but at this point I was still hoping that I would save this. But after removing the paint, I realized that this was just too far gone. And you know that I don't shy away from a challenge, and I'm happy to repair veneer, but the damage was literally everywhere, so it just wasn't reasonable to try and save this. And I think I need to clarify that I'm just talking about the sides of this buffet, not the rest of the veneer, because I did save the rest of it. When I work on a project like this, I wish I had a bathtub full of paint stripper that I could just put this in and just let all the paint dissolve and come off, because it's just such a mess. That was absolutely brutal. After using the paint stripper, there was a little bit of residue on the top, so I just used my scraper to get rid of it and get it ready for sanding and everything else.
$2,000 later.
This veneer is so rough that I either need to replace the whole thing or just try and patch all the little bits missing because they're literally everywhere. There are hundreds of scratches on here and some of them are really deep. It's probably not gonna be perfect. There are just too many of them and some of them are pretty bad. Being a YouTuber is unusual and quite fun, but it means that I have to deal with something I didn't really think about. Having an online presence means that I receive a scary number of emails and text messages with all sorts of spam. There is a whole black market of companies that sell your data to other companies who then, knowing your preferences when it comes to shopping habits, where you live, your gender, your age, as well as your address, they can target ads on social media, so you are more likely to purchase something. The good thing is that you can have your details removed, that's your right. But because there are so many lists with your details on them, and you don't know how to find those companies that sell them, that it just becomes a very difficult task. The good news is that there is a company like Incogni who can do it for you. With your permission, Incogni contacts all the data brokers and they ask them to remove your data. Thanks to Incogni, I don't get to pay a higher premium on my insurance because some company decided to sell my browsing history details about extreme sports to my insurance company, who then decided to charge me extra money because they think that I'm at risk of hurting myself or whatever. It's just insane that things like that even happen and that most people don't know about it. When you go to the link that you can see on the screen or in the description of the video, not only you'll be supporting the channel, you'll also get a huge 60% discount with my code FlippingDrawers when you sign up for Incognito. These gouges are definitely too deep. I'm not gonna be able to fix them with moisture and heat because this just goes through the veneer, so I'll need to use some wood filler. And there are just so many areas that are either just sanded through or missing bits, or they're just holes or cracks, or there's a large bit missing here. As much as I wish I could have saved the veneer on the sides of this buffer, it just wasn't reasonable because of the damage, so I cut 2 brand new strips of oak veneer and I replaced the veneer on the sides. I mean, I will do in a minute, I just need to take care of the top first. So this one was a really deep one and it looks like it's completely flat. If you ever do this yourself, you need to make sure that after doing this you go over the veneer with the iron but no steam, just because some of the veneer will probably delaminate. That's just what happens. So if everything is okay, that's fine, but if you see any bubbling, you just need to go over them with the iron but with the steam off. Looks like I can save it. So before I do any sanding, just because this veneer is thin, I wanted to raise the grain, remove all the scratches, and I'm gonna bleach it. As it's always the case when you work with old veneer, it doesn't look great when you remove the varnish, so I'm going to use oxalic acid to bleach it and make the color more uniform. It will also remove any stains that are natural in origin, and it will make it look closer to the new veneer that I'm going to put on the sides. And because the oxalic acid will raise the grain a little bit as well, I'm going to do all the sanding I need to do afterwards, just because I don't have a lot of veneer to work with and I don't want to sand through it. I'm going to do all the sanding I need to do on the solid wood pieces now before I put the veneer on, so I don't damage it. And I'm going to use this sanding block that's got a very similar shape as this. It almost sounds like I know what I'm doing.
A few moments later.
After all that, I applied oxalic acid to pretty much all the bits that I'm not going to cover, because when you mix new veneer with old veneer and some solid wood, they don't all look the same, even if it's the same species of wood, if you know what I mean. So that just helps you even out the tone. And then I use my router to remove this bit that was really damaged, and I just replaced it with a piece of wood. And to make it easier for myself, I used just regular wood glue and super glue to hold this piece in place until the wood glue was dry, because there was no way to clamp it really. I tried cleaning the inside with mineral spirits, hoping that it would actually do the trick, but no, it didn't. It actually looked pretty bad, so I ended up sanding the whole thing inside. I'm not sure what happened here, but this is really bent, and I need to pop it back in here and do something so it stays there. You can see what I'm doing, but in case you don't really understand what's happening, I'm just using that wedge to lift this shelf to the exact spot where it needs to be, and I'm using UV resin to glue it in place just because there's no way to clamp it or do it in any other way, and yeah, it actually worked really well. This is Mando's new favorite toy, just a piece of rope, and he basically just drags it around and meows, so I play with him. Fun fact, the other day I woke up with this rope around me and I thought that someone tried to tie me up, and it was just Mando. Well, that was fun, but it's time to do some more sanding. A lot more. There's a little bit of resin, but I'm gonna sand this whole thing, so I'll clean it up, but it looks like it's holding up and it's straight now. There was a big dark stain on the shelf, so I used some oxalic acid, and after 2 applications it was gone. And then I spent several hours trying to get all the white paint bits out of all those crevices. That was fun. So this is the next day after using oxalic acid on this nasty stain, and as you can see it's completely gone, which is awesome because I don't need to stain this. I think I'll just keep this as natural as possible, and I think I'm gonna sand the back to make it the same color as the rest of it, but very happy with the result. The inner sides of the doors were not looking great, and all the veneer around the edges was loose, so I had to use super glue to stabilize it before I did anything with it. And because there were lots of scratches, I used heat and moisture to try and fix them and make the veneer look as good as possible. Because the damage on the insides of the doors was just so bad and so many bits were missing, I decided to use repair wax to fill all those little spots in instead of replacing the veneer completely, because that was pretty much my only other option. I was actually pretty impressed with the result. It looked better than I expected. There's a significant bow on both of these support pieces, so I'm gonna take them off and reglue them. As always, I wanted to say a huge thank you to all of you guys for watching my videos and liking, commenting, because this enables me to do what I do, and I really appreciate it. And a huge shout out to the channel members, you guys rock. And if you want to support my channel, you can check out the links in the description. You can buy me a coffee via Buy Me a Coffee. Have a look at my Amazon wishlist, maybe get some snacks for the kiddies, and I'll love you forever. Thank you. That was a reenactment of what it felt like to sand the back of this sideboard. I hope you enjoyed it. The super glue will act as a clamp until the wood glue is dry, and this way I don't need to worry about clamping these pieces down because it's kind of awkward. I'm very happy with the back, and now I'm going to do a little bit more sanding on the bottom because it's a bit minging. In order to get through all the sanding on the inside of this sideboard, I needed a lot of cat breaks. I'm going to replace this metal bit that's completely rusty with a piece of wood, and this will actually stop both doors from going too far. Before I apply the veneer to the sides of this sideboard, I put on some tape just to make sure that the cleanup was super easy and I wouldn't get any contact adhesive on the bits that were already sanded and clean. I'm using liquid contact cement or contact adhesive, and it stinks, so it's a bit annoying, but it works really well, so I do recommend it. But if you ever use this, use the liquid one because it gets tacky really quickly, so this gives you a bit more time to work with it. Many people are intimidated by applying veneer, but it's actually not that difficult. You just need to do it once, and if you find it quite challenging, you can get veneer that has the contact adhesive already on it, so that's actually even easier. And because there was a small gap between the trim and the veneer, I just put in some wood filler, and as you can see, I used tape to make it super clean, and voila! Once I was done with that, I used my veneer saw and my trim router to remove the excess veneer, and the top here isn't finished yet, so don't worry about it. I did some hand sanding with the grain to make sure there were no scratches on the veneer, and then I inspected everything with a strong light, and somehow I missed some spots. I think I was doubting myself that I would actually be able to get to this point with this project, but I finally managed to get to the point where I could stain it. And I think this is coffee or something like that, the color. I mean, you can see it, it's like a brownish kind of walnut type of color, but I'll change it slightly in a bit. I bet you thought I was going to do a dual tone type of thing, as I often do, but I surprised myself. I actually don't really know what I'm going to do, but I wanted to see what this looks like stained with one color. What do you think, Mando? Do you like it? I think he does. To fix any remaining bits of white paint, or maybe if the stain didn't penetrate somewhere deep in the grain, I use fine tip markers. And then I did the same thing on the doors and the drawers. So my plan is to use this Osmo hard wax oil in satin, but I think I'm gonna tint it a little bit And I'll try some of these natural pigments, and I think this will help me get a nice and even tone. Because it's really nice outside and it's quite warm, the oil is completely liquid. Normally it's a bit more viscous. And somehow I managed to make chocolate. It actually looked like chocolate, which I was pretty happy with, and it actually did the trick. It just kind of blends everything together. If you never worked with hard wax oil, this is something that's super easy to work with, and it gives you plenty of time to wipe it off if you're not happy with it, or if you have any drips. I actually applied this tinted oil to the sides of the drawers and the inside of this sideboard so you can see how tinted it was, and you can kind of use it as a stain and a finish at the same time, which is cool. As you can see, I reused the hardware, but because it was just cheap thin metal, I painted it, and it actually looked pretty nice. I felt like there was something missing, so I used some gilding wax on those little flowers just to give it, you know, like a little blink or like a touch of something shiny, because otherwise I felt like this just was a bit boring. I also used this nice brass bolt lock thingy that I had, and I just cleaned it up and put it on the door, and I used this tinted oil on the inside of this sideboard, and as you can see, it actually made it look really nice. I didn't have the right nails to attach the handles to the drawers, so I cut some longer nails that I had in half and I sharpened them. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have, give me a like and comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Enjoy the final results and see you in the next video.